Welcome to the Innovative Pedagogy Podcast, where we inquire with the greatest minds in academia, where innovation, creativity, and authenticity meet the best teaching and learning practices for educators all over the world. Most importantly, hoping all those we come in touch with leave inspired and ready to change their world. Here's our host, Chris Garcia.
Welcome to the Innovative Pedagogy Podcast. I am your host, Chris Garcia. Today, I'll be sharing the top 5 lessons I've learned through my journey as a school administrator, reflecting on personal experiences and growth in my leadership roles. So, if you don't know, I had the opportunity of serving as an assistant principal during the 2022-2023 school year, and I learned so much. However, in my current role now as an ed tech coordinator, it was an opportunity that I could not pass. When talking about my 5 to 10 year educational plan, I eventually saw myself as an ed tech coordinator. However, I did not know that the opportunity would come as quick as it did. And I had to jump on it because sometimes these types of jobs aren't very easy to find, or they're very limited. And the level of impact that I can have, the type of influence and investment within not just an ed tech coordinating position or educational technology field in general, but the opportunity to have an impact across the entire county of San Diego. Now, that's been a life calling. I have always been the type where I want to have a community and global impact. I want my life to be able to mean something where I'm able to influence in a positive way the lives of just young people. And those of you that know my educational journey and story will know that middle school, specifically public middle school, was very difficult in my life. So, and even the things that led up to that. And thankfully, I came from a good home, I came from a good family, but it was the social pressures that had really just influenced my life to the point where I dealt with a lot of self esteem, anger, bitterness, resentment, and it all manifested itself within 7th grade to the point where, and this isn't going to be very inclusive or restorative, but yeah, I was suspended several times and eventually expelled from middle school. And I'm just looking back, and I don't regret anything because it was those experiences that gave me the drive to be where I'm at now, and to the point where I want to make an impact within the lives of just young people, to the point where they don't have to deal with the same stuff I had to deal with. They have outlets, they have resources, they have opportunities. And the way to do that when it comes to shifting education is to get involved, be a leader, be the CEO of your classroom, be a school-wide leader on your campus. And I'm talking just as a teacher. If you desire to go into administration, then go into administration and be that leader. Set yourself up for success. If you have an opportunity to have a bigger or macro level influence, whether that be a district or a county or a statewide or a federal wide or even a global influence, then do it. Find that opportunity that gives you that fulfillment in life where you're giving back to the generations and giving them wisdom. That's pretty much what it is. Giving them wisdom, giving them an opportunity of saying, like, here was my experience, here were my pitfalls, here were my challenges, and this is how you can avoid them. And let it be behavior, let it be finances, let it be relationships, let it be adapting to society, and do it. If there's ever a time that Generation Z and now the upcoming Generation Alpha needs wisdom, needs leaders that are going to be transparent and showcase of how they've overcome the challenges of life, it's right now. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. very quickly into the top 5 lessons that I learned as a school administrator. Number one, trusting your admin team. This is crucial and this is key because you need to know that you have each other's back and that decisions that are being made together. And what I mean by that is knowing that your admin team, your principal, your assistant principals or associate principals, vice principals, however you have the school titles at your school, that you are all one unit. You have to make sure that you know that. My principal at the school site that I was at, that was the first thing that she shared with us and said, "We need to have each other's back. We need to support each other. We need to communicate with each other." And rightly so, because in the world of leadership, and this goes for any leader, I've heard of different leaders in different facets, and not just education. I'm talking about even if you watch The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player ever to play. And I'm more than certain the same mentality, that Mamba mentality came out of this, and what LeBron James is doing now came out of this. But Michael Jordan knew it was going to be a lonely world, a lonely journey to be the greatest of all time. And I can attest that there are many opportunities in leadership where it feels just like that. Like you are by yourself. So to know that you have a team and know, like, hey, I have at least 2 or 3 other people that we are in this arena, we are in this battlefield, we are in this together for the long haul. It's essential. It's important to know that they have your back and that you have their back. One of the challenges that came about the first few months of being an administrator was making those decisions together. And those of you in administration right now know that if a situation happens on campus, whether that be a behavior situation, a parent situation, a teacher situation, a community situation, decisions need to be made very rapidly. There isn't an opportunity to really get a council together, to get a lot of people together to make a collective, unifying, holistic decision that in the perfect world would be great. So to know that you can go to your administrative team and communicate that is important. But I will also say it's important on different levels because you're learning what their decisions or what their feedback would be like. Because it gets to the point in that leadership team, come after winter break, come around spring break, and even after that, as an administrator, you're able to make decisions more quickly and even without having to be given feedback of what their decisions would be like because you already know what your other colleagues would think. Because, like anything else, a lot of the situations and behaviors, especially with students, are very repetitive. Very repetitive. And sometimes the only difference is now is the usage of technology or social media. But the same things you would see on the Breakfast Club from the 80s or the bullies from Weird Science, you're still seeing that now. We're just seeing it at a heightened level now because everyone has access to showcase it and broadcast it throughout the entire world. So that's where the decisions become a little bit more trickier with ed code and with laws and whatnot. But again, that's a topic for another day. But making sure that you know your team, work well with your team, are able to make decisions with your team, and eventually even knowing what kind of decisions your team would make, but still having that open relationship and that door of, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts? The other thing that it comes down to when it comes to working with your administrative team is being vulnerable and honest with your team. Being vulnerable and honest when it comes to taking risks, when it comes to your personal life, when it comes to your health, when it comes to just who you are. Because again, they have your back. You have their back. There's going to be times where one of you are going to have to pick the other one up with decisions, with coverage, with support. And it's important to establish that level of trust that I can count on my colleagues. And I will have to say, the admin team that I had the opportunity of working with was, in my personal opinion, bar none. And again, my experience, the things that I dealt with, the wisdom that I was receiving, the vulnerabilities that were being shared, of the challenges of the job, the difficulties of the job, the joys of the job, the things that were fulfilling in the job. I loved my team. And the reality is that I would work with them again in a heartbeat because of how much I enjoyed. And that's important. That is important to have. All right, number two, taking care of the office staff. Now, this is important because your office staff is the most important and first line of defense on all aspects. They're the ones that are there for the students, for the parents. They're the ones that are there for the teachers. They set everything. And as an administrator, we have to take care of them. And it's, I'm gonna say, the one of the easiest way of doing that, and it's actually not easy, it's more easier said than done, is having the opportunity to find time to just listen to them. Check in with them. How are you? How was your weekend? How's your family? Hey, follow up with, remember that one time you told me you were going to take that vacation? How's that coming about? What are your summer plans? Tell me more. When they come back from the summer plans, how was it? What did you do? Let me see some photos. What are some highlights? Just being real. And I'm not encouraging anyone to be fake out there. No, be sincere about it. But again, if you're an administrator, an aspiring administrator, even if you're a teacher, take care of your front office staff. Use the calendar. That's my other piece of advice, is use the calendar to support you. The calendar tells you, look up the national days for your administrative assistants or for the nurse or for the school counselors, for the attendance clerk, for the custodial staff. Look up those days of like, when can I celebrate you? Because those are the days to do it. Honor them. Thank them, because without them, and school administrators will know this, is that the administrative secretaries, the ones that hold it down, they're the real boss. They're the ones that control the calendar. They're the ones that can de-escalate the parents. They're the ones that make those community phone calls. They're the ones answering the phones. And I've always done that. I've always realized that, and I've recognized that from day one as a teacher up until even now with my our administrative assistant as a team. They are they're the gatekeepers. They are the Gandalfs. They're the ones that let the people pass, and the people that don't, they control our calendars. Treat them well. Take care of them, because it's not an easy job. It is not an easy job at all. I've had opportunities of seeing successes. I've seen school lockdowns. I've seen different things, and they are holding it down, creating a safe environment. So, this goes for anyone. Take care of your office staff. The next one is, and I'm going to be very careful how I say this, but I think it's very powerful. I will say it worked for me, but there's also a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of privacy. There's a lot of laws, and not just ed code laws. I'm talking about just laws in general, but having transparency with teachers and faculty. So, the first thing you can do is you start off with acknowledging the needs of your teachers. And it can be anything from, hey, I need whiteboard markers, to the fact of like, hey, I have a doctor's appointment, or I'm dealing with this medical issue, or I can't with this kid anymore. Listen to them, because our teachers and teachers in general deal with so much, and teachers that have been teaching for a long time know this, that the types of students we had in 2019 are not the same types of students we have had in 2022 and so forth. We all know what distance learning did to a lot of students. And those that are currently virtual teachers and have online academies, keep doing what you're doing because you're rocking doing that. But in the traditional sense of getting students acclimated and back, teachers need support like never before. So acknowledge the needs of your teachers and really be sincere. Hear them out. Take note. I mean, if you're the type you forget a lot, then in your administrative notebook, write things down if you need to. Remind yourself. If you have a smartwatch, tell and use the AI in your smartwatch. Use a code word, but have it remind you to follow up with someone. I had the remind part of my iPhone just going off on me last year, so that way I could follow up on things. The best administrative assistant, other than the ones I just talked about, would be whatever's on your smartphone to remind you. And I'm not going to say, hey, fill in the blank because then my devices are going to turn on right now. But if you catch my drift, say, hey, Jeeves. There we go. Hey, Jeeves. We'll take it back to the late 90s, early 2000s. Hey, Jeeves, remind me tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. to follow up with such and such teacher about such and such. And guess what? You've used technology to help you out, and you're sincerely wanting to follow up. So follow up and be transparent with them. But the other way I was talking about, let's just say, let me just take something that's very light. A teacher needs supplies. Follow up with them and say, hey, thank you for letting me know what you need. I placed the order in, communicated with the district warehouse. This is what they've told me. Great. Then set yourself a reminder to follow up. Or tell the teacher, hey, follow up. Let me follow up with you in 3 days. And if I don't do that, please just reply to an email to me. That was another thing I told teachers. They needed something. Hey, email me. That's my to-do list. I'm an inbox zero type of person, so trust me. If I have a to-do list, I'm going to try to do everything I can to get that done. So, yeah, send me an email. Now, that's another conversation. If you're not an inbox zero person, that's personal choice. No judgment there. I'm just talking how I operate, but find that level of system of being able to follow up with your teachers. So that way it's not overwhelming either. Because I will tell you this, I don't know of which human being has the brain capacity to remember all the needs of everyone on staff. You need to write these things down. Much less, I just can't even fathom right now trying to think of the needs of an entire staff, your personal needs, your family's needs. And shout out to those administrators that are currently even getting in the doctoral programs as well, because I've heard and I know of a few. Man, my salute to you. And if you're listening to this podcast while you're an administrator and doing your doctoral program, you can go ahead and pause it. But if you're enjoying it, then great. But either way, utilize something to support yourself when it comes to that transparency. And I mean transparency as far as, hey, and even be honest. I'm so sorry I didn't get a chance to do it. Hey, this is what I know so far. Keep waiting, keep following. I've noticed within education in general, the waiting game is real. The waiting game is real. And just be patient and don't be afraid. Teachers, listen to me. Don't be afraid to be the squeaky wheel. Follow up with your administrators. Hey, just checking in. Hey, but administrators, leaders, be transparent. Communicate where you are in the process of whatever that is. Again, I'm just talking about markers. It could be about behavior. It can be about suspension. It could be about when a student comes back. That's another one too. I found that was crucial. When you hand out consequences, make sure that you have a quick summary of what you need to communicate those teachers of what happened. This is the student. This is what happened. That way the teachers know whatever happened to them again. What do I need to do to support them? Be honest with your teachers. Let them know what's going on. All right. Hey, and the same thing goes for when there's treats or whatnot in the teacher's lounge or when you're doing something. Let them know. So communicate with your teachers. Just be honest about the process. You want them to trust the process? Well, then just explain the process. If you like listening to sports, you'll understand this, but just be the play by play announcer. Hey, this is what's happening. Here's what I'm able to do, and communicate. So that I would have to say that is one of the things that I've learned is just transparency. And I've had teachers that have appreciated my transparency and candor. Um, and that's just something that you need to consider as a leader. And also consider this. I know it's an election year, and I'm not going to really get political, but the reality is this: is that politics sometimes where's the transparency in that? Where's the transparency in leadership? And if you can be one of those leaders that finds that even keel of, hey, here's a transparency of my leadership, then give it. Be honest and communicate also with your staff. Like I told you, I'm sorry, your admin staff. Share with them, like, hey, I want to communicate this. How can I communicate this message where teachers are hearing what they need to hear and what's going to benefit them? But then in addition to that, I'm still protecting privacy laws. I'm still protecting that opportunity of under promising and over delivering. I go back to that analogy as well because that worked with me even as a sales associate when I was in the tech department there at Office Depot out of high school. I knew that building custom computers took about 48 hours, but I would tell the customers it took a week because sometimes there was a delay in the manufacture or in a part or whatnot. So finding that silver lining of being able to under promise and over deliver. All right. That actually ties in with this next one, which was going to be quick communication with school staff. So I'm just going to reiterate this part, and that is just set deadlines of when you're going to follow up with teachers. That'll help them know what to expect, an update, and that's also going to support you to provide deadlines for yourself and using them and communicating with those that you're working with. Now, this part I do want to emphasize when it comes to communication with school staff, but also community members. If it's a safety situation, you heard me say the word lockdown earlier. Sometimes those things happen. A shelter in place may happen. We are a public school. We have neighborhoods and there's different needs amongst a variety of neighborhoods. But if it's a safety situation, let them and your district personnel, aka your superintendent, assistant supes, cabinet level, communications director, be the first ones who are communicated before the community. And typically the community is notifications released moments after the teachers find out because everyone hears the same story. Here's the facts. Here's what happened. So, and that I would have to say is an administrator is one of the more tougher things of being able to communicate because you're going from communicating and a message that needs to be communicated in a timely manner because it has to do with safety, but you want to make sure you have all your facts straight. You want to make sure that you didn't leave out anything in the investigation. You want to make sure that you have your support from your district personnel, your administrative team, and now communicating that with the teachers and the parents. Making those decisions on a high leverage, high speed moment is not easy. I would have to encourage you to reabsorb yourself with some sort of B12 vitamins after that because they all went away when those decisions were being made. So, now speaking of B12 vitamins, being a human being, that's number 5. Being a human being. I'm going to start off with learning how to take care of yourself. So, create moments of you being present in a situation, spending time outside, eating healthy. I can't emphasize that enough. And I will say that my admin team and I did indulge more often than not in some round table pizza on Fridays and making decisions right after that or whatever the case is was difficult. But trying to be as healthy as possible. Also, having relationships with the people that you love and the people that love you back outside of school, where you can be yourself in a non-judgmental area, where you can be in a safe zone of like, this is my tribe, these are my people. But I would also add to this is also enjoy talking about the things that excite you. So that year, 2022, 23, I'm a huge Padre fan. Live and die, San Diego Padres. I started following them right after the 1994 strike. And of course, this is not a sports podcast. I can immediately turn it into one if I wanted to. But I love this team. And the things that I remember as a student were the how fired up this city got for its two major sports teams in the 90s, which were the San Diego Chargers and the San Diego Padres. In 94, when the Chargers went to the Super Bowl, I remember in third grade just decking out and having Spirit Charger days. I remember in 96 and in 98 having Friar Fridays and just school went out. So I made it a point to just build school culture during the 22 playoff runs. And I told the school, like, we are going to make it a Padre day every game of the playoff, every series until they are out. And I mean, we went all the way through the end of October. And I kid you not, the level of camaraderie that just rose to that. Then after that, the World Cup happened in 2022. We broke a little rules. And I mean by rules, yes, I gave permission for students to break some rules during lunch and come out with their laptops and watch the World Cup. And I kid you not, the commodity, the level of respect, the level of chanting, the level of engagement that students had was just remarkable. And the conversations were that. It was amongst the school culture, not only the teachers and the faculty and the staff and the community, but even the students. It builds that. It allows them to see your human essence of who you are. I mean, the other thing that I continued talking about throughout the entire school year was Ted Lasso. Love, love, love Ted Lasso. And the leadership opportunities, the moments, talking to people, encouraging people to watch it, following up with them. Hey, did you watch it? What you think? And in reality, I told him it's one of those feel good shows. And I would encourage staff, like, if you've had a hard week, if you're having a hard day, go home and watch Ted Lasso because I promise you, you're going to feel 10 times better after you watch it. Because it is the realest show that there is. Of course, it's based on a fictional character, but I'll kid you not, as a grown man, there was one episode where I bawled my eyes out. And I'm not going to tell you which one that is. You're going to have to guess if you ever get a chance to talk to me. Those of you that are on my admin team, you may know it. If you forgot it, text me. But it's a feel good show, though. I will say that. And it got a lot of us talking. It talked to one of our counselors, loved it. My boss loved it. I actually did a thing as far as biscuits with the boss. Those of you who understand that reference understand it. And I always called her boss. And yeah, we had biscuits with the boss. I even eventually did a whole school thing where um I brought biscuits and I brought American biscuits. So I didn't have a chance to make them like Ted, but I did bake them. Pillsbury Doughboy, and got some pink boxes and they got stickers and everything. It was just cool. It was really cool to have those conversations because you get to know your staff and hey, shout out to one of my teachers that had an opportunity of also sharing with me the Bear series. I loved it. I loved the opportunity of teachers just sharing with me, like, hey, Chris, you got to check this out. And guess what? That builds commodity. I'm gonna watch it, and it was great. It was awesome. So as we conclude today's episode, I hope that these lessons resonate with you and provide really valuable insight into what I think is effective educational leadership. So I'm going to encourage you to join us next time as we dive into deeper discussions within the innovative pedagogy. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, or any future topics, please feel free actually to visit my website. That's right, finally created one at garciaedtech.com. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter, on Instagram at Innovative Pedag, or you could follow me at Garcia Ed Tech SD. Until next time, everyone, catch you on the flip side.